Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you how to cook one of my favorites, Moroccan chicken and sweet potato stew. It's a really good dish. I normally like to make it on days like this when it's a little bit cold and rainy and miserable outside. British summer for you guys. So yeah, these are the ingredients that you need. There is a detailed list of everything in the description, so don't worry if you can't catch it all while you're watching this part of the video. So come join me and come try with me this new recipe. By the way, that was my little son that keeps sneaking into the videos. So you need to brown the chicken. You can do this all in one pot. So I'm just using the same pot to cook the stew as well as brown the chicken meat in. So starting off with browning all the meat that you have and then setting it aside so we can add it to the stew later. You can add a pinch of salt to the chicken while you do that. So once all the chicken's done, then you add into the same pan all the sliced onions that you had prepared earlier. Remember, you don't really need to brown the onions here, that's not the point. We are only looking really to soften them a little bit. So add a pinch or two of salt, just to help quicken that process a little bit. Also, you can probably see me scraping at the pan there. It's just to try and get all the caramelized bits of chicken on the bottom of the pan to come off. Don't worry about it, guys. It just adds a really great flavour to the whole stew. So this bit is probably going to take, I would say, on a medium flame, probably about 3 to 4 minutes. Make sure your onion doesn't catch on the bottom, so keep stirring it. You're doing great, guys. So once the onions have softened nicely, you want to add all the spices. So I'm starting with my turmeric here. And then I'm popping in the rest of the spices. So cinnamon, cumin, and also the coriander powder. Once again, guys, all the quantities are in the description box, so don't worry. It's important with spices just to make sure that it is cooked a little bit so that it kind of loses that rawness and that bitterness that can sometimes happen with raw spices before you obviously add all the stock and everything else in and cook the stew. So you'll see me sauteing the spices for a few minutes. Well, more like a minute to a minute and a half. One thing you want to make sure is that the flame is on low. And if you feel like the pan's a bit too hot and the spices are catching, you could do one of two things here. Either you add a little bit extra cooking oil. Today I used olive oil. Of course, you can use whatever you've got to hand. Ideally olive, sunflower, vegetable oil, something along those lines. The other option is if you are a bit oil conscious, of course, some of us are, you can always add a little bit of warm water instead to the pan. That just stops the spices from burning. So the next step here, as you can see, I'm kind of going ahead, is just to add all the puree that we made earlier. So once again, everything that you need for the puree is in the description box. Now this is raw, of course. What you've got to do is just mix it all in with all the other dry spices, and you've just got to let it simmer down a little bit until you cannot smell that kind of raw smell from the tomatoes and the onions and the ginger and the garlic that's in that paste. So again, guys, this could probably take a few minutes. I would say simmer it on low again. So, you know, take your time, don't rush the recipe, put the lid on, come back in probably about 5 minutes or so. Of course, if you can't get the heat low enough, just make sure you check in between. make sure that the sauce isn't actually burning on the bottom. Unfortunately, my pan was a little bit hot, so you may see a couple of little burnt, no, actually, let's call it caramelized bits at the bottom. So if there is any, just kind of try and scrape it off the bottom of the pan. It's all flavor, don't worry about it. You're not going to taste it once it's all cooked. So once that's all done and the raw smell has gone from the paste that we'd made, pop all the chicken back in that's been browned earlier. And at this point, obviously, this is all chicken thighs that I'm using here. Whole chicken thighs, boneless. Stick it all in the pan. You'll probably see some juices from where the meat has been resting in the pan. It's all good, guys. Pop it right into the stew mix. There you go. Perfect. Of course, at this point, please add any more seasoning that you feel you need. So salt, even a bit of pepper, all according to your taste. I didn't add anything at this point in time because I was going to add the stock, which is usually quite salty. So I was going to do all of my seasoning towards the end of the cooking. So as you probably realize now, and I did at this point, of course, that the pan that I'm cooking in is probably a little bit too small for all the chicken that I've got going in there. Unfortunately, a bit too late to change anything really, so I just carried on. At this point, add the vinegar in, 2 tablespoons. Gives it a nice tanginess and sharpness that you need for this stew. And then that's the sugar that I'm adding. So that's basically unrefined cane sugar. It's called jaggery. It's an Indian version of it, but you could just use regular brown sugar. And if you haven't got that, just use a couple of tablespoons of normal white sugar, guys. You're probably not going to taste a huge difference in the taste there. So mix that all in. At this point, you're going to want to add all the sweet potatoes into the pan. So as I said, this pan's a little bit too small, so I couldn't really dip the sweet potatoes into the stew. If it was bigger, I probably would have kind of mixed it in with the sauce. However, at the moment, I just kind of place it on top of the chicken because I'm planning on just putting the lid on and just letting the sweet potato kind of steam rather than obviously boil in the sauce. It works perfectly fine. Sweet potatoes cook fairly quickly. So at the moment in time, the plan is to just put the lid on and let it cook for probably around 25 minutes on a medium simmer. Oh, don't forget to add the raisins at that point, please, guys. So after about 25 minutes, just pop the lid open and you're probably going to get this amazing aroma coming out of the stew. Guys, it truly is so gorgeous. You're probably wondering what I'm doing with the lid there. I'm literally just trying to find something to put it on, as unfortunately the stew was so full in that pot that it was practically overflowing and the lid was completely kind of coated in it. So now what you've got to do is take out all the sweet potatoes, pop it on a plate and put it to one side. I am doing this in preparation to try and make that stew sauce a little bit thicker. So you've got to do the same thing with the chicken as well. Take it all out, pop it on a plate and put it aside for now. At this point, guys, you can always check that the sweet potatoes are cooked. I simply do this by sticking a fork in it just to make sure it's nice and soft. You'll see in a minute. So to the pot, add the rest of the stock that you couldn't add earlier, or maybe you could add it all earlier. I don't know. I certainly couldn't. So my sweet potato is nice and perfect there. So now all you've got to do is let that stew simmer down. So you've got a nice thick velvety stew like so. And at this point, you can add all the chicken back in. But what I've decided to do is shred all the chicken because it just makes it easier for you to eat and easier to serve as well. And it looks prettier on the plate. Once all that chicken's gone in, you can add all the sweet potato on top. Guys, I just remembered there's actually one little bit on here that I have forgotten to include in the video. It's the lemon that I showed you at the start of the video. Make sure you zest it and pop all the lemon zest in here as well while you add the chicken in, because honestly that gives the flavor another dimension, a nice freshness and a zing, and it's perfect. Time to garnish now, guys. Pop some freshly chopped mint leaves on top. It gives it once again a wonderful fresh aroma from the mint, and it's a very nice complementary flavor to the rest of the stew as well. Add in some fresh red onions that have been chopped up nicely. It gives a really nice crunch and a yummy contrast in texture to the stew. I hope you guys like this recipe as much as I do. Please comment, subscribe, press the thumbs up button, and let me know in the comments below if you do. Thank you.